Welcome back. Did the earth just move for you too? Last time we fought through another boss with parachute pants and several demi-humans. Today we just climbed back out of the mines. And previously I mentioned that Sturges always drop Vera roots. It is just those given instances at the beginning of the mines that do so. The fact that I'm healing for just 2 hit points of damage should give you an indication of what's coming up next. Besides my crippling fight against OCD. I realize that I probably should have actually have used a different spell in that case rather than Prostasia, but well, it's not that bad of a choice. And set up reflect damage, because I've got this guy just rushing to meet me. The Ogre. As you see in the cutscene, the Ogre is taking the fight to you, which, besides the Minotaur and maybe Dwayne, none of the other enemies have done so. The other ones will just lurk back and take their hits as they may, or breathe fire at your face. Now, despite him being another demi-human, and other things being classified as human, this is a beast. Just go with it. The Ogre, like Dwayne, has high chain evade throughout much of his targets, with the exception of the body. But since the body kind of has high defense in other regards, I'm just going after the head. Single taps, and going from there. You may also see that I just jumped accidentally. Attempted to do the quick shortcut to the sorcerer attack to cast a generate. Instead, I just jumped like a moron and gave him a shot. Before I realized that, he attacks very quickly, so if you're attempting to button mash to get an attack in, you're probably going to mess up defense reaction to it. Didn't that time, thankfully. He is quite beefy. And just look around a bit, trying to see if I want to try and actually cripple something or just keep going after the head. And again, there's the... if you're eager at attacking, you're probably going to mess up the counter. Guess what I haven't done in quite a while? Healed right before the end of the fight. Ashley's such a badass, he just turns away from the explosion. Didn't walk away though. Just like old times. Healing when I don't need to, and then just getting more hit points. It's a good thing early on, but as you go on with the game, you're going to find out that you will not be lacking in hit points. I see you guys. I also saw Kalo's ass for some reason. This game fixates on women's asses when they are women on the screen. Apparently you're seeing things through Kalo's eyes. I enjoy the detail they put in. Back when Final Fantasy VI was out, they had that generic finger waggle motion, but with Sydney and his very long fingers, it's very expressive, like his shrug when they summon the dragon. And once again, Hardin tries to stand up to Sydney, tries to call him out on his reckless behavior. But Sydney just is able to stagger him. Quite literally. Never trust somebody who just says and ends sentences with friend too often. And Hardin recognized that Sydney just kind of gave him the Jedi mind trick to calm his shit down. And there's Bardorba's son again. Kind of imagine in that scene he just has this creepy British accent. He intends to die. And there's Mr. Cankersore. So right now we have Sydney, who has a whole bunch of powers, Hardin, who can just have out-of-body experiences, Kalo, who can see children, and Ashley, who can look into women. Now, if it was possible, I was going to try this out with the Father Dwayne fight, but his friends were flagged as boss types. This is honestly a little bit too much trouble than what it's worth. It is also quite obnoxious. You have to cast heal on a human and enemy character 3 times without interruption. Doesn't need to restore hit points. Just 3 consecutive heals. And drumroll, he becomes a friend. Literally. However, as you see, this guy has some buffing abilities. And while I was going to allow him to fight it out against themselves, I did not realize that him casting a buff on his friend would turn him back against me, and I just don't really feel like fighting both of them. So, if you do this, go after the ones who actually can buff. This is an interesting gate. You can see a little cross on it. Can't go through there. Not yet. And now on to plot. You may remember Kildain as one of the things in Final Fantasy XII. He heard something, and he's just trying to get into somebody else's head. Poppies are, if you remember, the source of opiates. So, the opiate of the masses, as communists would say. And a drought is a drink, so he's just getting into her head saying... So Sydney is just leveraging the fact that she's either blinded by faith or by lust, and trying to crawl into her skin even deeper. And a crook is a shepherd's cane to go on with their discussion, the stereotypical hooked cane. And Sydney was just trying to also imply that God is dead, and since there's some similarities to the Galbadian Church or Saint Ajora in Final Fantasy Tactic, it almost seems like they just decided to just put a different hat on their god. Or at least that's one consideration. When it became inconvenient for Saint Ajora to be the focus of the church, they just found somebody else. But that's just a theory. Nothing else, especially because this technically isn't in the Evole series. got a sword that I have no real interest in having. Well, we were talking, I brought up Saint Ajora and Saint Iochus and things of that sort. I would like to make mention of the crosses in both games. In Tactics, either as a cheap and quick and dirty form of censorship, they just lopped off the upper section of the cross. But that technically is the way that crucifixes did look. The Romans weren't particularly interested in doing too much carpentry and tongue and groove type chiseling into their murder machines. They just chopped off the top of a tree and chopped down another tree and stuck one on top of the other and just basically made a T, which was what Saint Ajora's cross looked like in Tactics. When the Romans would actually take the effort to do the upper section, like with Jesus, it was to advertise the crime. So, as a deterrent, for example, if you've seen a crucifix, you may see INRI on the upper prong, which is short for Jesus Nazarenus Rex Iedorim, which is Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews, was his crime. In this case, the glorified asterisk is this game's cross, which I guess Saint Iochus was Leonardo's Vitruvian Man. That's really the only thing I can explain why it has 2 extra prongs on it. That, and it just looks awesome. There is a reason why people get it tattooed on themselves. And just doing some prep work. Again, for no reason, of course. And here is, honestly, I think the most memorable music, aside from when they play the common leitmotif from the intro screen. Reminds me an awful lot of Danny Elfman type themes. These guys are guests, and, well, besides being another undead on the pile, they, as you can see, are quite agile, so it'll take a couple attempts to knock it out of them. That move debuff is so important on those things. I don't think I've ever seen them move. And can't get through there. All I wanted to do was murder. I put my my fire gem, I think, into storage, or it's attached to something else. So I just go with something that just gives nominal boost to everything. I'm just not gonna say it. You know, meme, blah blah blah. Weapon change for stuff. Unfortunately not massive damage because I chose to bring in the silver stick just because I wanted to have something that I could equip a shield with until I got close. As you can see, the crab is most vulnerable in its mouth, but it is also incredibly defensive about it. Don't even really have that much risk, but it's just not shaping out. So instead I begin to hack away at the arms. That one Crimson Blade that casts Heracles, I hate him so much. Just so much. Seems like forever until you can cast it yourself. I mean, Degenerate and Prostasia are good, but Heracles is, it's the other side of Degenerate, so you can juggle weapons and shields all you want, and you're not going to have to deal with it wiping out like Prostasia. It seems quite strange that I've been having, with the exception of the ogre, bosses just don't really seem that inclined to attack. The crab, if I dawdled too long before getting into his face, would blow bubbles. Like so, except damage you and bloat all around. Woo! Over 1 million arbitrary points. At least it's not hit points. Time for my undead weapon again. And time for just murder for the sake of murder. Again, this jerk has high evasion, but there's very little he can do against the face of just berserker rage and bloody-minded stubbornness. And got the second level break art for the dagger. Halfway there on that. I'll need to go off screen and grind out the stave and the other two-handed weapons break arts just because it needs to be done. Again, it compels me. I think he likes skulls. What do you think? Excellent. Okay, I didn't try and do that. I was trying to go excellent. But I can always do the excellent. So, yeah, not too much that I can say, you know, just hack slash snicker snack. Other Jabberwocky lines, I guess. Vorpal Blade. I need to change my names on some of these weapons. Not to Vorpal Blade, mind you, but there's something that I always call this dagger, and, well, I'll show that off next time. Naming is purely cosmetic. Like the bosom cleaver, red squirrel, or pink squirrel, pesky moose and sclera, things like that. All it does is help you to think like, oh yes, that's what I did with that weapon. That's my beast killer, my toenail trimmer, etc. and so forth. Wonder why they're talking about hunters climbing things. It's a theme that's going to carry over to the next area. Bloody hell, Yasmet, why are you fixating on girls' butts? And as you may notice, workshops always have the rude. It's an interesting theory. believe I've heard that before. I'll have to look into where I've heard, war is change. Paling is a fence, by the way. Kind of curious how he recognized that it was Ashley rather than Sydney or Hardin or, anybody else. And here we have basically something like The Matrix or Inception, where injuries carry over to the real world. And here we have Professor Plot Dump. This is the explanation for Ashley being able to see butts from miles away. Also his murder abilities. Kind of confused about that. I mean, Rosencrantz acts like he's been called out, but Ashley said, "Hey, I believe you," kind of, but then he's like, "Well, what? No, please, I am telling the truth," but you're not telling the truth. And we left, and we've come back, and we've left again, and Rosencrantz, who also left, has now come back. Nobody likes Rosencrantz. They tolerate him, they use him, but nobody goes in for the handshake, bro hug, fist bump, anything. Just get away from me and your horrible canker sore. Grissom's interesting. As you remember, before interrogating that one cultist, he crossed himself and both to ask for forgiveness for the cultist and also to ask for forgiveness for him slamming his head into the wall when he hears something blasphemous, and sincerely seems to believe that God is a significant force to call upon and to rely on in this battle. And all the other people who are Crusaders, Knights of the Cross, Crimson Blades, whatever you want to call them, are all otherwise either using the dark magic, using something else, but he seems to sincerely believe it. And just like Ashley and Grissom, we're not going to wait for Rosencrantz. I'll see you next time.